Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. If you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. So, yeah, there's no such thing as a dumb question. You can ask me anything that you like. I'm here to answer your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. So, if you got any questions about politics and you want to put them in the chat, you don't got to worry about getting roasted or getting made fun of, or what do you call it? You don't. I'm not gonna judge you based on your question. It is just good faith answers to all good faith questions. JP, what's up? Good to see you. How's my mic sounding this morning? I'm trying out a new setup. Let me know. All right. So, any questions about politics? Just put them in the chat, and we'll get to answering them. I know that politics can be really confusing, especially when you're first trying to learn about it, especially now with all of the misinformation and propaganda that is run rampant out there, with troll accounts and grifters spreading misinformation just so that they can get more likes and people debating each other and fighting each other. That's not what we do here. It is just good faith answers to all good faith questions, and everyone is welcome, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the sides. I am here to answer your questions. So just go ahead and put them in the chat. What's up, Laura? Good to see you again. Muzzking, good to see you again. If you got any questions, just put them in the chat, y'all, and we will get to answering them. Dan Blackbird says, how does a bill become a law? Well, the both houses of Congress, the Senate and the House, would vote on it, and the president would sign it, and that's how it becomes the law. Excellent question, Dan Blackbird. I'm pretty sure you knew the answer to that already. So yeah, you don't have to worry about getting fought here. You don't have to worry about getting debated here. JP says Bubba is neither Bill Clinton nor a horse. Thoughts? I mean, the interesting thing about getting information from Epstein's emails specifically is that you really have to remember that he is a piece of shit. And so, as much as I would love to take everything in there that is derogatory against Donald Trump as fact, then, it's more, he could be full of shit. He's often full of shit. So, yeah, I don't doubt that there is something out there. There might be something to this, but, until we get any substantive evidence, it really is just a fun thing that is living on the internet. Excellent question so far, everybody. A whole bunch of numbers and a dollar signs. Tell me anything about politics. Okay. Voting is one of the most important things that people can do. And the fact that so few people in this country vote is part of the reason why we're in this mess right now. There's your anything about politics. Dan Blackbird says there are also personal emails. People don't have reason to lie in personal emails. I mean, yes and no, but people lie for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes people lie to brag. Sometimes people lie for leverage in personal emails. Yeah. Again, I want to believe it, Dan. User a bunch of numbers says I should have voted. I think so. But but if you didn't, I'm not here to call you a piece of shit or anything. I just want to convince you to vote going forward. Fletch Lives Again says, why did Trump change his mind on the EP file release? So I think there's a couple of potential reasons for it. Number one, we know for a fact that the what do you call it? That Kash Patel's FBI has been working overtime, and instead of trying to find crimes to solve, they are just redirecting FBI agents to redacting Trump and other Republicans' names from those files, potentially highlighting or doctoring those files. So maybe he is no longer concerned because he believes that he has cover because of Kash Patel. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that he, wants to appear as though he is not afraid of these files, as though, the last 9 months didn't exist of him being very specifically trying to keep these files from being released. And then he will just try to obfuscate and delay until it is out of the public's mind. Like he could release the files today if he wanted to. So him encouraging Republicans in Congress feels a little shallow if he's not literally just saying, all right, here's all the information. Shark says, is it too jaded to say nothing ever happens with respect to this attempt at releasing the files? I mean, I don't think, even if nothing comes of these files being released because Kash Patel has destroyed all the relevant information about Republicans, including Donald Trump, I still think that it matters that we are seeing Republicans in government break ranks with Donald Trump, because it is just further evidence of his fallibility and his lack of total fascist control over the government. And so, even if, again, nothing happens with the e-files, that in itself is important, I think, and we should all be glad for that, even just the messaging of it. DJ, more break, please. Good afternoon. I want you to know you continue to serve us. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate you saying that. Okay, Shamalama Ding Song says, should Sasquatch have voting rights? I don't know if Sasquatch is a citizen who adheres to the rules of America. I don't know if he pays taxes. He or she pays taxes. E.T. Garden says, can they get away with taking all the Republican names out of the files? So I'm not 100% sure about that, E.T. Garden. I have seen some reporting that these files exist in two separate places. So if the Judiciary Committee has it and the FBI has it, then that sort of limits the ability of what Kash Patel can do. We're potentially looking at a scenario where we release what Kash Patel has, but not with what congressional Republicans have, in which case, we would have the redacted version and not the non-redacted version. So yeah, it's we kind of just have to wait and see how this all plays out. We should continue to put pressure on our elected representatives to release the full and unredacted information. But anybody who tells you they know for certain that Kash Patel is doing this, or congressional people are doing that, unless they are working in the government, they most likely do not know. Rich was here says, wouldn't there be another set of files? Yeah, there might be. I've heard reporting that there is, but who knows? Okay, Kingston Dakota Cole says President Naboa is running off to President Trump to try to probably end our no vote over the foreign military bases, and we know Trump is probably going to scream on Truth Social that Ecuador should have foreign military bases, even though it will remain banned. Kingston, Dakota, are you Ecuadorian football pitcher, whoever used to be, Ecuadorian baseball pitcher that used to be there? Because you have the same thing. You have a similar vibe. All right, back into these TikTok comments. Shorks says, you have helped me convince my conservative family Trump's foreign policy is stupid. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. That's the entire reason why I'm here, Okay. Straight Schraker says, do the congressmen know what's in the files, or are they also clueless as the general public? Some of them do and some of them don't. Like, depending on what committees different people in Congress are on, they will or will not have had access to certain privileged information. User says, thoughts on the banned minor thread? I don't know what that is. Flesh Lives Again says, can the original files be changed, redacted permanently, or is the original info probably saved in multiple places? Fletch, I've heard reporting that it is in multiple locations, but with this administration, I don't really put anything past them. We just have to kind of be open to the fact that they are doing permanent damage potentially, and hope and pray that they are not. El Toro Perro Loco says, is Rubio going to CIA Maduro or secure a ton of cheap oil? I mean, yeah. It's like, for some reason, Marco Rubio has fucking gone full in on regime change wars in, Central and South America. So it's like, I don't know, man. I think that oil is a strong part of it, but I also think that they don't like authoritarians who call themselves left-wing authoritarians. They only prefer right-wing authoritarians for some reason. Toby says, what makes you an expert on politics? I read a lot about it. Carson says, what side are you on? I'm a progressive Democrat, so you can make whatever assumptions that you like off of that. Kingston says, yes, it's me. I just wanted to put my name. Marco Rubio is a jerk. Yes, he is. All right, Kingston. Well, welcome. It's totally fine if you wish to change your name on Twitch. I am not going to hold that against you, even a little bit. All right, everybody, we are up to a rip-roaring start. I'm a little low energy today. I'm a little sleepy Jared today, so hopefully you won't hold that against me. User says, thoughts on Trump giving talk to Bill Clinton? It's a fun story. We don't know if it's true or not. I'm working on a video right now with another creator around the idea that we could probably get Donald Trump to admit whether it's true or not by just telling him that we heard that it was a really bad blowjob that he gave, and then he'll be forced to defend it because he can't let anybody think that he does anything terribly. So he's going to have to go out there and be like, that's fake news. It was the best blowjob of all time. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody knows it. Everybody was saying, oh, look at Clinton. Look, he's happy. He's smiling. He's so happy. He's never been so happy. I never seen a smile on his face so big, and so we'll see if that video gets made. But yeah, that's the gist of it right there. Rich was here. His other theory is he makes Bondi open up target investigations into files to force a hold. So I have heard that theory. Rich was here, and that is one that I'm a little bit more skeptical about its efficacy. Like, it might work as a delay tactic, but we're not talking about like locking up the files for a decade or so. We're talking about potentially this will hold the files until 26, maybe. But yeah, again, I don't believe that is the three-dimensional chess move that people are claiming that it is. All right, King Simpleton says, let's talk about abortion. Okay, I'm pro-choice, but even if you're pro-life, you still vote for Democrats because Democrats are the only ones that have policies that actually decrease the number of abortions. Republican policies don't actually decrease the number of abortions or even stop abortions. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Lucas Aspie says, what's the best city in your opinion? I mean, I've visited almost every major city as a touring stand-up comedian. I lived in New York and Los Angeles, and I've lived in red states and blue states. And so, yeah, they're all great for their own reasons. I would, what do you call it? I would not want to put one city above the other, but just like, I love New York and Chicago and Boston and Philadelphia. And I have some like sleeper hits, like smaller cities, like Des Moines and Boise. I like those cities a lot. King Simpleton says Epstein files are not going to have any actual impact. You don't know that, King Simpleton. It seems like they already are having an impact, King Simpleton. So I would encourage you to have the humility of thinking that you might be wrong about predictions like that. Ivan Cisco says, hello, Jared. Look forward to this live chat. I think they removed Trump from the list. It's possible, but we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. And so long as people recognize that these documents have been in the hands of Trump sycophants and loyalists like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and so there is a certain amount of cover that may be in those files after they have been sitting in those hands for a long time. So long as people know that, then and that we don't let them get away with releasing the files that quote unquote exonerate Donald Trump and then allowing them to say, look, we're totally exonerated, case closed, moving on. The same way that they did with the fucking Mueller reports. They pretended like that exonerated them, and then people bought that for some fucking reason. All right, fucking HTX London says, so Bubba is either a horse or Clinton. Well, I mean, I think the Epstein's estate has said that it's just a separate human being entirely. User 69 a whole bunch of times says, why is corporate socialism such an issue in the American economic system? Because the same mechanisms that make socialism beneficial for individual citizens also make socialism really profitable for corporations, so long as it is very specifically only for corporations. And so because people who have a lot of money are petitioning and lobbying the government to allow the kind of corporate socialism that makes companies like Walmart and Intel massively profitable and eliminates other market competition, then they will lobby a corrupt government to do that. And because the Republicans are currently in charge and they are working hand in glove with the billionaire class and their giant corporations, then obviously they're not going to stand in the way of shit like that happening. User 69 says, how can we get a freer market? We need to reintroduce competition into the marketplace by breaking up mega corporations and hyper monopolization. And we need to get Democrats in office to have the kind of regulation that encourages competition and encourages small businesses while at the same time protecting consumers and citizens from like toxic waste from these corporations' factories and shit like that. King Simpleton says, who is paying for all the free things in New York? Everybody is. The rich people and everybody that pays taxes is paying for the free things. User 69 says, do you believe a freer market would actually benefit the bottom 30%? I mean, I believe in a regulated market. So there's a difference between a free market and a regulated free market and crony capitalism. What we are suffering under right now and have been for a long time, arguably since the Reagan administration, is crony capitalism, meaning it's a free market in so much as we do not regulate giant corporations. We let them do whatever the fuck they want. but we will regulate small businesses so that they cannot be competitive with those giant corporations. Right. Buffalo Trucker says, you mean corporatist Democrats? No, Democrats are in control of the government right now. Only the Republican Party is in control of the governments. Timmy Tim says, I think files won't have a difference. However, released pictures will. I think the files are already making a difference, Timmy Tim. Evil Ticker says, do you think the GOP propaganda machine is good at its job for people that have no critical thinking? So let's not include the people that have no critical thinking part of it into the equation. Like, there are certain things that we know about people who vote for Republicans regularly. We know that they are typically less educated than people that don't vote for Republicans. So people that didn't graduate college, people that didn't graduate high school are much more likely to vote for Republicans. But that doesn't mean that they are dumb or that they are more gullible. But maybe there are certain things that you get from education that help you to see through the GOP propaganda machine. But there are perfectly smart people who did not get a high school education and total fucking idiots that have PhDs. King Simpleton says, what about the stock market? It's rigged after hours. Yeah, I mean, I believe that there's a lot of tomfoolery and chicanery in the stock markets. And I believe in regulation to stop that. If you read anything about the 2008 financial crisis, what you will see is a failure of regulators to actually do their jobs. And when the stock market crash happened and Democrats had a supermajority in the government and Barack Obama was office, then we started seeing legislation to try to keep that from happening. But then, when Republicans got back in there, they just started, defanging all of that legislation to the point where now it basically is non-existent, and the stock market and giant industry are up to their old tricks, doing all that bullshit. Okay, DJ More Break, please, says, so here's the thing. If it's true, I wish Bill Clinton, because he only has a couple years left, we'll just wait. We'll just say yeah, and to be honest, it wasn't that great. Oh yeah, he's good at what he does. Bill knows what truly or truly did not happen and should stand up and destroy Donald Trump. Yeah, I mean, I don't love Bill Clinton as a human being. I do think it would be fucking hilarious if he went out there and said, yeah, it's 100% true. Preston says, you seem to have a very empiricist view of the world. I like that. Ooh, what a $1,000 word you got there. Okay. User 69 says, because if we allow foreign businesses and products, we will ultimately benefit. I mean, if you look at the long term of globalization in economic policy, it is better for everybody in the long run. But there are certain groups of people that get fucked in the short term. And for example, when this push towards globalization happened in the 80s, then we started seeing, the working class getting fucked over and laid off, and towns that were built around single industries were drying up. This is what's that Michael Moore movie, Roger and Me is all about, is about how this is the reason why towns in America started dying, because they were reliant on the car industry, for example, and then those car industries decided that they would move production out of the country, and then those places got fucked. And if you don't mind me, opining here for a second, this is something that I really loved about that movie Nomadland with what's her name, Frances McDormand, where she is a person who is living on the road because she had put down roots in this one factory town, and the factory closed down, and then she never put down roots again because it was so heartbreaking to her. She had set up this perfect life, and then this one corporation, because they decided it would be more profitable not to have their factories in that town, or maybe that factory was no longer profitable and had to shut down or got sold to a giant conglomerate, then all of those people just had to uproot their lives. And that whole thing that they had set up over years, decades, they're becoming friends with each other, and having a grocery store to go to and a school for your kids to go to, and block parties with your neighbors, that was all gone, all destroyed. And now this person who never wanted to set down roots but fell in love with this was completely fucking betrayed, among with thousands, tens of thousands of other people. Which is why I love that movie. Is I think it really shows you a very specific slice of how hyper monopolization and corporatization can just really fuck people's lives over, in ways big and small. Evil Ticker says capitalism will only work for a democracy if it is regulated, otherwise oligarchy will ensure. I agree with that. Rich was here, says great movie, speaks to many on the move today, living paycheck to paycheck. Yes, accurate. Shay Cruel says, do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene will pave the way for other Republicans to pull away from Trump? Shay, I think it's a little bit simpler than that. I think it's just the fellow with the island and all of the files around him. I think that with the election on Tuesday and with an insatiable desire for more information about the fellow with the island and who he was in cahoots with, we are starting to see some really substantive rifts in the MAGA and Republican foundation. And so I would never have predicted this. I thought that once, they ran the table in 24, then, it was going to start looking like fucking Star Wars and we were all going to have to do, fucking Andor shit to try to get out of this. But, it seems like this is really reaching people and I'm happy that it is. I think we could also put the election results on Tuesday up in there as well. King Simpleton says, I'm assuming you're a Democrat, but you have receipts. I am a Democrat. King Simpleton says, why is Bitcoin absolutely tanking? So I don't know. I mean, Bitcoin, all cryptocurrency is basically, a Ponzi scheme. I believe in the economist Paul Krugman when he said that there's really no viable use case for Bitcoin except as what do you call it, as speculative investments or crime. And so, as with all speculative investments, they go up, they go down. If people use them for crimes, Trump is making a fucking fortune off of it, selling out the American people so that he can make a buck. It's disgusting. Okay. King Evil Ticker says, I never would have thought Trump would honeypot Bill Clinton to beat Hillary. The dude is maniacal. He will do anything to get power. King Simple says, I'm MAGA, absolutely, but I don't like Israel first. Is there something about MAGA that you like specifically, King Simpleton? There are people who, they just love Trump no matter what he does. And so if you're one of those people, then, you're welcome here. I would love to engage with you in good faith. But potentially, if you are breaking with him on Israel, maybe that there are other things that you don't like about him as well. But why would you describe yourself still as MAGA after all this time? Koos, I don't know how you pronounce that, says, do you think that all these politicians, regardless of party, right and left, are friends? I do think that there are some people who get along with each other in the government. You're all working in the same building together. Sometimes you can disagree with people on good faith things and still be friends with them. RBG was famously friends with Antonin Scalia, and they could not be more diametrically opposed. Personally, I find it a little bit rich to be friends with people who are actively doing harm to marginalized communities, poor people. The people that need help the most are getting fucked over by this Republican Party. And so to be friends with those people, I find to be a little, gives me the ick a little bit. But, you form a coalition with a Republican who believes in trickle-down economics so that you can get the files released that might take down Donald Trump. Sometimes that shit comes out in the wash. Alrighty. King Simpleton says MAGA was supposed to be America first. Okay, I mean, I understand that as a concept, but I think you have to look more at policy wise and see, are Americans really being taken care of? But I don't think that it's just Israel that is making it so that MAGA isn't really America first in policy. King Simpleton, would you agree with that? Would you agree that there are other things that Trump and the Republican Party are doing that are proving that the Republican Party is not America first? How do you feel about that? Fletch Lives Again says Bitcoin is in ongoing into the off season now for a year or two. I don't really follow it. I just I steer clear of it. Piston Honda says, how about those people who hate him no matter what he does? Piston Honda, Donald Trump is a uniquely terrible human being. He's been a uniquely terrible human being for a really long time. So, if Donald Trump gets rid of the penny, which I think was the right thing to do, I don't think that undoes all of the terrible things that he has done in his life and as president. And so, I don't really know if it's productive to hate anybody, but I think that if you look at the sum total of the things that he's accomplished, I think it is perfectly reasonable to go, that's a fucking piece of shit who has done a lot of damage and he should be in fucking jail. The last place you should be is in power, let alone the presidency. Next clip says, I would like to see you debate Destiny on Israel. Bet you couldn't win. I mean, Destiny's a professional debater. I'm not a debater. I have very simple issues with the Netanyahu government that it would not take a debate to really get into. It's like they've done war crimes, they've done G-side. Netanyahu's a piece of shit. He's corrupt. Like what? I don't know how you argue against that. Preston says, "Do you believe that the less government control, the more prosperous in terms of stability?" I mean, I think it's a balancing act. We have to give citizens the ability to do what they want to do, and give markets the ability to thrive and contract as they see fit. But without government intervention, we then are just living under a new aristocracy, a new dictatorship of the landowners and the business owners, as opposed to the old kings and queens. Okay, let's see here. Kingston says, "Do you think Trump will give up office once his turn is over? If not, do you think we will have to drag him out?" So Donald Trump is going to try to stay president until he dies. If that means 3 terms, 4 terms, 5 terms, he's going to try. Whether he's successful or not is up for debate. And before, last week, I would have told you that the only thing that could stop him would be us all doing the work. And I still think that it is vital for us all to do the work, but it also seems like maybe the Republican Party itself is going to be part of that coalition of people that is going to keep him from achieving that goal and maybe removing him from office. And so, yeah, I don't know. He'll try, but it's an open question whether or not he'll be successful. Evil Ticker says, "Think enough MAGA will vote Dem in the midterm to stop the Heritage Foundation from destroying democracy." I mean, I think we'll probably see some people leaving the MAGA movement. I don't know if they'll vote for Democrats specifically, but I don't think that Democrats need MAGA voters necessarily to win the midterms. There are a lot of squishy Republican voters out there. There are a lot of non-voters out there that can be convinced to vote for Democrats easier, I think, than getting MAGA to vote for Democrats. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, or even that it is a not worthwhile goal to have, but I think that it's unnecessary to have that be our main focus. There's always that argument about, should we do persuasion, or should we do, or should we do should we do persuasion, or should we just do get out the vote? And the answer is both. And so, yeah, we can include converting MAGA, but I think it is way more important to focus on non-voters and squishy right-wing voters. And I reached my gift goal. Thank you so much, Kashal Udamath and Counting Blocks. I really appreciate you guys helping me reach my gift goal. I heard that reaching the gift goal helps in the algorithm. So thank you for that. All right, let's get back into some of these TikTok comments. Alrighty. QA Morozov, hi back to you. Okay, King Simpleton says Democrats are absolutely not working on the right things. I disagree with that, King Simpleton. The Democratic Party, especially during the Biden administration, was both recovering the economy from the clusterfuck that was Trump's COVID response, and also trying to build a new economy from the ground up, as opposed to trickle down, which is what Republicans do. But if you think that that is a different focus of the Democratic Party, I'm down for hearing it. Now, I will say this, King Simpleton, as you were preparing your response, they just did a massive study of people who, like, what people's opinion is of the Democratic Party. And what they found was that people had erroneous beliefs about what the Democratic Party was doing. They believed the Democratic Party was focused on giving undocumented immigrants the right to vote. What are the other ones? Sorry, I have a whole note here about it, because dismantling the police and what do you call it? There was another one. I fucking forget the rest of the. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So yeah, according to the study, people believe that the Democrats' main priorities were abolishing and defunding the police and prison, free healthcare to undocumented immigrants, and lowering the voting age to 16. And what's interesting about that is that no elected Democrats are trying to make that policy. Like, it didn't happen during Obama, during Biden, and it's not happening now. So where did people get that idea from? And similarly, they were asked, what would you like the Democratic Party to do? And their answers were raising the minimum wage, making healthcare better and more affordable, and not cutting benefits like Social Security and Medicare. And that is what the Democratic Party was doing. So for some reason, Americans believe that Democrats are doing bad things that they're not doing and not doing good things that they are doing. So let me know what you think about that, King Simpleton. Sergio says, did anyone see the video of the fellow with the island speaking directly to a Democrat during a hearing? I have not seen that, Sergio. I wonder what it is you are getting at there. It's all theater, so the Democrats need to learn how to market for a campaign again. They're really good at losing. You know, it's all theater. I think that a lot of the criticism of the Democratic Party not being able to win elections is a little inaccurate, particularly because the deck is stacked against them so thoroughly. The Electoral College, the Senate map, gerrymandering, the information environment skews against the Democratic Party. Campaign finance skews against the Democratic Party. Being a rainbow coalition makes it harder to coalesce around a specific message. So I think the fact that they have been able to win as much as they have over the past 50 years is evidence of how good of a party they are. But, you know, you feel free to disagree with me about that. And thank you again, everybody who helped me reach my gift goal. Your mom is cool, Deborah Smith, and counting blocks. I really appreciate that. As I said before, I think reaching these gift goals helps in the algorithm. So I appreciate y'all helping me do that time and time again. All right, setting up the rows, setting up that. Okay. Fog War Productions says, what would gerrymandering look like? I don't believe in gerrymandering. I believe in independent redistricting commissions. King Simpleton says, Democrats like taxes. King Simpleton, Democrats like taxes on rich people. But for the 99% of us, our taxes are going to go down. In addition, if Democrats were able to achieve their wish list of policy ideas, then all of our cost of living would go down as well, and you'd be getting paid more at your job. So the Democratic Party does not like taxes. They like taxing the rich people and then using that money to help the rest of us. Evil Ticker says, agree, MAGA are very well brainwashed by the GOP propaganda machine to ever vote Democrats. So Evil Tickers, I know that it's really easy to throw shade at Republican voters, but I would encourage you to have a little bit more empathy for people and not describe them that way, because it potentially rubs people the wrong way and maybe it can come off as elitist and condescending. Says, what political ideology do you follow? I'm a progressive Democrat. I'm not really sure what you take that for, but if you have a policy question, go ahead and ask. Bronwyn Blanc says, why did they decide to do away with the pennies? The spending value of a penny has decreased to the point where it's basically negligible. And it costs way more money to make it than the utility that we get out of it. And so we're probably going to start moving towards a system where all prices end in a 5 or a 0. Potentially we'll get rid of the nickel at some point too. But yeah, you don't want to have a penny when inflation means that a candy bar costs $20, because then what's the fucking point, It doesn't really make that much of a difference. Alrighty, let's see here. Average Joe says, you've mentioned that before regarding MAGA. You moved from an FU mentality to let's have a conversation strategy. In terms of percentage, how much is Marjorie Taylor Greene's recent shift to political strategy versus genuine reflection? Because I don't buy it. Should we ever entertain even the possibility of her showing remorse? So I think it's both, Average Joe. I think that we need to be open to people changing, but I also don't think, and John Lovett over on Pod Save America put it this way, I also don't think that we should be a cheap date, where we can say, we see you, we appreciate the work that you're doing, but you have to understand that it was only 5 months ago that you were accusing Israel of having assassinated JFK. And so you have a lot more work to do if you want to win back our trust. But yeah, word on the street is that she's trying to run for president or something, and so this maybe is a move towards the middle. Maybe she's just trying to carve herself out a very specific type of the MAGA base. I have no idea. I don't know. But yeah, how we react to it, I think, is the only thing that we can control. And so that would be my response, is we should say to her, we see you, we appreciate the effort. You have a lot more work to do if you want to undo the tweets that you were sending even 5 months ago. Dano says, do you have any suggestions on how to discuss policies and or have a productive conversation with MAGA? So a couple of things about that, Dano. Number one, are you on the Discord? Because I have a book recommendation on my Discord that delves into this in great depth, and I highly recommend it. It's called The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. So everybody join the Discord. There's great recommendations on there for podcasts and books and also volunteer organizations that you can work for. That's number one. Number two is if you are just trying to do the work of winning elections in the future, there are potentially better uses of your energy than trying to convert a MAGA person into a Democratic voter. But if you are discussing policies or want to have a productive conversation with a MAGA person, the key is that you have to not be confrontational. Like, you have to not be a finger wagger or trying to win. What you should be trying to do is, let's find the one thing that we can agree on, even if that thing is as small and distant from the point as, isn't it weird that we have two different versions of reality just based on where we get our news? Isn't that strange? And then we can start to go from there. Like, what are the sources that we trust? How can we figure out what's accurate, what's not accurate, stuff like that. Or you can find a policy that you both agree with. Like, I don't think we should be sending money and weapons to Israel anymore because of X, Y, or Z. And then maybe you can find a foundation of agreement to build off of from that. But check out The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. I am a big fan of him and his work. King Simpleton says, I'm still MAGA. I always will be. I'm sorry to hear that you say that, King Simpleton. Because it seems as though you are at least here in good faith. But what do you think about all those things that I said about how you maybe have an inaccurate view of the Democratic Party? What with our desire to make your life better and tax the wealthy. Right. SoCal Brit says, I love Jesus, I love my president, and I love my country. That's not a question, SoCal Brit. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Seth Aronian Cheese says, if someone is against abortion, why should they still vote Democrat? Genuinely asking. Excellent question, Seth Aronian Cheese. So this is the shortest way that I can say it. If you want more specifics, let me know. If you are pro-life, you should still vote for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is the only party that actually has policies that decrease the number of abortions that happen in America. The Republican Party's policies don't stop abortions and they don't decrease abortions. They only make pregnancy more dangerous for women. There are women who are dead today, not because they wanted to get abortions, but because they were trying to have children, and Republican state abortion bans made it impossible for them to get the medical care that they needed, and now they are dead. There you go. Seth Aroni, let me know if you want any more information on that. Real Bendis says the easiest way to sway someone's politics is to date them. Potentially, or maybe they're trying to sway your politics. Short says, I find it so hard to empathize with anyone who still approves of ICE. There are people out there who are hardcore racists who love the fact that ICE is hurting people of color, but there are other people out there who are just being lied to about what ICE is doing. And I think it is incumbent upon all of us to be part of the coalition of people that are opening their eyes about that without saying, you fucking Nazi fuck, look at what you're allowing to happen, Slick says, do you believe your own lies because people are fleeing democratic states because of taxes? Slick, that is not true. People are not fleeing democratic states because of taxes, and I don't lie. Slick, if you keep on saying things like that, then I'm going to boot you, because if you are here in good faith, you can ask whatever questions that you like, but if you call me a liar or a cuck or anything, then I'm going to get rid of you. Sir Smartass says, I wish Trump was half as extreme as you people think he was. Do you not think that he is extreme, Sir Smartass? Do you not think that him accepting bribes from other countries and having a crypto coin is like beyond the pale of anything we should allow a president to get away with? SoCal Brit says he has them crazy eyes. Donald Trump does. He sure do. P says, have you heard of Georgism? I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Yahtzee says, the dude who I asked you last time what your screen name was, and I still have no idea. Let me know what it is. King Simpleton says, ICE is doing exactly what we voted for. King Simpleton, I was under the impression that ICE was supposed to only be going after the worst of the worst. But ICE is illegally detaining people who are citizens, veterans, Native Americans, legal residents. Like, is that really what you want ICE to be doing? Is taking people who have done absolutely nothing wrong and throwing them in, best case scenario, they throw them in jail for a couple of days and then they let them go? there's a dude who missed his like the birth of his son because ICE had him in custody for no fucking reason. Like, is that really what you wanted, King Simpleton? Jacqueline Vu Patino says, what is a progressive Democrat? Is that similar to a Democratic Socialist? There was a lot of crossover. I don't know if the label Democratic Socialist is productive because I think a lot of people still get hung up on the label of socialist. There might be some daylight between the policies that I advocate for as a progressive Democrat and the policies that a Democratic Socialist might advocate for, but I'm pretty certain that we are, similar creatures on the same planet. SoCal Brit says MAGA. You were warned, SoCal Brit. See you later. So yeah, my name is Willie. All right, I guess I'll just call you Willie from now on. Thank you, Evil Tickers, for being here. King Simpleton says they are. Look at what the crimes of those people did. King Simpleton, I cannot stress this enough. There are certain things that are up for debate in the political sphere, but the fact of the matter is, almost everybody that ICE is detaining or deporting have done abso-fucking-lutely nothing wrong. And so I am begging you to get your news from other sources. If I send you information on this, will you take a look at it? Will you send me a DM or send me an email through my website so I can send you this information? Because this is not one of those things that's like up for debate. Like, we have the data on this. We have the stats. We know that they are not just doing this to murderers and pedos and stuff like that. King Simpleton says the people they arrest are very terrible. Again, King Simpleton, if I send you this information, will you look at it? Will you send me a DM, please? I'm trying to engage with you here in good faith. Super Mario says, whoever it is, King Simpleton he pivots from the topic to ask a different BS fact. Super Mario, this is a fella who's asking questions. This is a person who is not calling me a cuck or a liar, so we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt for a hot second. Okay, let's see here. All right, over to Twitch. DJ Moore says Marjorie Taylor Greene being relatable this year was not on my bingo card. She does have a lot of work to do. She is moving in the right direction, though, so I have to give credit where credit is due. I still don't trust her, though. Yeah, nobody's saying that if a Republican does one thing good, that you have to love them. You can give Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and Jeff Flake as much credit as you like for standing up to Donald Trump in his first term, but I'm still not voting for the guys because they are still, trying to do trickle-down economics, and we know that that's bullshit. Okay. Racially profiling folks by the color of their skin will never make America great. I completely agree with that. Average Joe says this may be a question for any right-wing viewers, but if you know the answer, great. If you're against abortion, why not just decide not to get one? Why force women to involve the government in their medical decisions? I think it's a little bit like if there's a group of people that believes that abortion is murder, then would you be okay with other people doing murder and then those people saying to you, well, if you don't like murder, then just don't do it, And that I'm pro-choice. I'm just, I'm here to advocate for voting for Democrats and for pro-choice policies. But yeah, I think that's what they would probably tell you, is that it's murder, and I'm not going to sit around and let people do murder. All right, King Simpleton, I asked you about sending you information about the people that ICE is detaining, and you have not responded to that. So let me know, because that actually is a deal breaker for me and my live stream. Like, if I am making an overture to you, if I'm fig leafing it up and you don't even respond, then I find you kind of sus. So you got to respond to that, or I'm going to boot you. Okay, let's see here. Real Bender says, how is it that blue states like New York and New Jersey have prison systems that abuse minorities terribly? I think that is work that really needs to be done, Real Bender. And no state is perfect, regardless of how blue it is. There are, centrists and corporatists and Republicans in every state. And if you go to specific, corners and districts, it can be a lot redder than you think it is. Oh, excuse me. I think it is probably related to the fact that we had Cuomo as governor for so long in New York State, and he's a fucking, he's remarkably right wing and dollar focused for somebody who's supposed to be a Democrat. Okay. Thank you, Curious One. I like to think so. Hangry Panda says, if the DOJ refuses to release the files, who will the DOJ hold accountable? That's really interesting, Hangry Panda. And I honestly don't know how that would play out in the court system. I think we do see the judiciary standing up for the rule of law still, even with the Supreme Court being the way that it is. Sometimes the Supreme Court does not reverse lower court decisions, and so the legal rationale that real non-MAGA people find in these cases gets upheld, and that's really good. And on rare occasions, the Supreme Court does the right thing. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how that plays out. But yeah, I don't think that it's game over or game set match either way. Okay. King Simpleton sends me information. Fantastic. Will you send me a DM, King Simpleton? Because it's easier for you to find me that way than for me to find you. Yeah, I am totally down to engage with you on that. Let's see here. King Simpleton says, do you remember 9/11 with the Muslims? Well, I mean, I was in New York on 9/11, so I think that if I, as a person who lived there, who fucking breathed in that smoke, can recognize that Muslims are not responsible for terrorist attacks, that it is individual people who are responsible for terrorist attacks and extremists, then I think that you can probably do that as well, King Simpleton. Cuz 808 says, do you think Trump actually did it with Clinton? I don't know. I think it's a waste of time to what do you call it, to try to suss that out with any evidence. King Simpleton says, you are supporting a Muslim in New York. Yeah, why not, King Simpleton? Do you think that just because of whoever's religion did 9/11 thinks that everybody of that religion is bad? By that rationale, then every Christian would be bad and every Jewish person would be bad, because there are some people of every religion who have done terrible things, King Simpleton. Let's see here. Yeah, King Simpleton, go check out my most recent video. I talked about this, where I'm like, if we talked about Christian mayors the way that people talk about Zohran Mamdani, then people would say shit like, they're gonna stone your women and they're gonna set them on fire for being witches, and they're gonna kill you if you don't convert. That's what they did during the Crusades, and it's against Christian law to touch the skin of a dead pig. So football's not gonna be a thing anymore, and they're gonna measure the fields in cubits and shit like that. Let's see here. Vince Thomas says, are you getting paid by George Soros or Bill Gates? No. King Simpleton, yeah, it was Christians who started the whole stoning women thing, man. That shit's in the Bible, man. Ederath says, guns don't kill people, people do, but apparently they can't apply that to Muslims and planes. Yeah, because guns don't make decisions, but people do. So, Ederath, I don't know if you think that was the slam dunk that you think it is. Alrighty, let's see here. Chris says, why do people stop buying Hunter Biden's paintings? I don't know anything about that. Alrighty, King Victor, that is a spam, so we're gonna go ahead and block you. Average Joe says, I guess I find that explanation hard to believe when they're against things like SNAP and free school lunches, Yeah, I completely agree with that, Average Joe. But the way that I'm sure that they would rationalize it is by saying, like, a fetus is the most vulnerable thing that exists. They have no agency of their own. And so to murder that is the worst crime imaginable. Whereas a child can get a paper route, and that's how they can afford to pay for their own food and shit like that. Again, I don't agree with that argument. I'm just saying that's probably what they would say. Okay. Amin Ahmad says, who shut down the government? Well, the Republican Party shut down the government because they refused to negotiate with Democrats over subsidizing people's healthcare costs so that they don't, quadruple in 2026. Real Bender says, what group will be damaged more once the list is released? Celebrities or politicians? I don't know. I think it's just rich people. I think rich people are the ones that are going to suffer the most, whether they're celebrities or politicians or whatever. Angry Panda says, paper routes still exist. I mean, you get my meaning, Angry Panda. Alex MGS says, would you get top from Trump or Monica Lewinsky? Neither. Thank you very much. Nothing against Monica Lewinsky. I'm just happily married. Thank you very much. King Simpleton says, not correct. The Democratic Party shut down food stamps. King Simpleton, you got to go back to asking questions, my guy, because right now you are just spreading propaganda. And, I'm trying to be, we're trying to find some common ground here. Let's not just say things that you think are correct that are not correct. Okay. Qui-Gon Corey says, why do Democrats care now and haven't for the last 5 years? They have. If you ask Representative Ro Khanna, he will tell you that Democrats made 3 attempts to release this information in 2019, 2020, and 2023. And it was either unavailable because it was part of an active investigation, or the Republican Christopher Wray, who was in charge of the FBI at the time, decided not to release it, or Republicans in Congress were filibustering it. Okay, King Simpleton says Trump didn't shut down food stamps. No, he did, King Simpleton. He literally did. He went to court. He went to the Supreme Court to argue that he should be able to not fund food stamps for people during the government shutdown. Did you not hear about that, King Simpleton? That's a very real thing. That it would be easy for you to double check if you like. P1 says, hey my guy back. Real Bendis says, if you were drafted during Vietnam War and couldn't get an exemption, what would you have done? I would have much rather gone to jail. And thank you everybody who helped me reach my gift goal. Muzz King, Kashalu Namath, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Triska Fawn and Counting Blocks, y'all are the goats. I really appreciate you being here and helping me reach my gift goal. All right, let me set up one last one. All right, we're doing finger hearts now, everybody. All right. King Simpleton says it absolutely was Schumer. No, King Simpleton, no. And again, you have to ask questions or I'm going to boot you. That's the end of it, man, because all you're doing right now is I'm giving you facts and you are saying, no, that's not true. I mean, look into this, give it a Google, or at the very least, just wait for me to give you the proof later when I get off of my live stream, but don't just say no when I'm no, you were lying. All right, that's it for you, King Simpleton. Sorry, see you later. It was nice while it lasted. All right, Average Joe says, will Monica Lewinsky just the fall guy? That's really funny. Jamie says, what do you think of Trump using the official White House website to demonize Democrats? It's illegal. It's against the Hatch Act. I think that it is one of a billion reasons why people should not vote for the Republican Party, because they're in control of Congress right now and they are letting that violation happen. And it's nonsense. Darlaham says, can we trust the files are not flushed of all Republicans? We cannot, Darlaham. We have to hope that those files exist in more than one place. And it seems as though they do, because, Kash Patel has been sitting on these files for a long time. He has redirected hundreds or over 1,000 FBI agents just to redacting Donald Trump's names from the files. So why would they still be delaying? Surely that they have finished their job, but they're still delaying and they're still obfuscating. So, maybe, hopefully that information is in other places. Fog War Production says, is it okay if I get my information from cryptic symbolism in my dreams? I mean, it's definitely more accurate than whatever fucking, King Simpleton was getting their information on. Vince Thomas says, what are your pronouns? He, him. Slim Shiesty says, do you think Japan is justified or overstepping by stating they will defend Taiwan if China invaded? That's a little outside of my area of expertise. Sorry. So sorry, Slim Shiesty. Pokerface says, why didn't Biden release the files? So there is supposed to be a separation between the executive and the judiciary. It is one that Donald Trump is violating in his first term. That alone is impeachable. Like, that is a really big deal that he is doing that. But Biden didn't. And so Biden did not tell his DOJ to do fucking anything. But I will tell you that Republicans in Congress tried to get those files released in 2019, 2020, and 2023. And it is only because they were part of an active investigation, or because Christopher Wray, a Republican who was running the FBI at the time, said no, or because Republicans filibustered and obfuscated it. Alrighty. Qui-Gon Corey says, why didn't Biden use an executive order? Again, because Biden believed in the separation between the executive and the judiciary. Paiwan says, can Dems flip Tennessee next month? They can. 100% they can. Curious One says, I'm curious, of course you are Curious One, as to how the government will continue to work if so many politicians are in the files. Well, there are contingencies, I think, for every state if a member of the government needs to step down, and then they can be replaced by their government. Pokerface says, why did they raid Mar-a-Lago? Because Donald Trump stole a bunch of extremely sensitive classified documents that he was not allowed to have. And they asked him a bunch of times for them back, and then he lied and obfuscated. And then they went and they got the files, and he would be in jail right now for that, were it not for the fact that he won the presidential election in 24, and the fact that Merrick Garland slow rolled that, and the fact that the Supreme Court delayed the trial from happening. Qui-Gon Corey says, do you ever criticize the left? All the time. Dan Blackbird says, bet y'all wish you'd voted for more women right about now. Yeah, for real. Shork says, do you think it was a mistake that Biden tried to not prosecute political enemies? I don't think it was a mistake. I do think that Merrick Garland gave way too much weight to the image that any indictments against Republicans would be seen that way. Because even played as straight as a fucking arrow and delayed to death, the Republican Party still said that all of the trials and all of the indictments of Donald Trump were politically motivated. So it's like, they're going to say it fucking anyways. Like, you should have just gone for it. So yeah, no, we should not be encouraging political parties to go after their political rivals. We should encourage the Department of Justice to follow the law and follow the facts and follow the evidence. That is what Merrick Garland did, albeit extremely slowly. And that is what Donald Trump's Department of Justice is not doing. He is literally just telling them, go after my enemies regardless of if there is evidence or not. Thanatos says, did you see the House vote on the bill 427-1? Who was the one? Vince Thomas says, are you moving to New York City? No, me and my wife lived in New York City. I lived there for 20 years. I fucking love New York City. I would happily move back, but unfortunately my wife's job is out here. And because I'm a touring stand-up comedian who does live streams, I can work from anywhere. So now we're out here. Okay, Clay Higgins. Who the fuck is Clay Higgins? Louisiana? Well, fucking Louisiana, if you're watching, fucking go to work, you know? That guy needs to get primaried. That guy needs to get fucking replaced with the Democrats. Vince Thomas says, are you living in California now? I am, Vince Thomas. Vince Thomas says, why are the roads bad in Michigan? Why are the roads bad in Alabama and Arkansas and Tennessee and Louisiana? Let's see here. Vince Thomas, I see what you're doing. I at least appreciate that you're asking questions. Thanatos says, 2 others voted nay than unvoted. Average Joe says it really was Trump that was wearing the dress. Or he just spat it at her. You know, we'll see. That was a really gross joke. I apologize, everybody. Dan Blackbird says Clay Higgins is a pretend person. Yeah, sure. All right, everybody. We are almost at an hour, so get your final questions in. Thank you, everybody, for all the great questions and engagement. You know, I love this. This is one of my favorite lives. If only we can all use this as evidence. If anybody ever claims that I kick people off for having different political beliefs, you know, we've got Vince Thomas here. We got King Simpleton. Totally fucking engaged with everybody. Real Benda says, where do you do comedy? So right now I am off the road because my wife and I are expecting. I will be back on the road in about a year. Me and my boss both had babies, and the scheduling really fucked me as far as like being able to go back on the road. I do it a little bit in Los Angeles from time to time again, but the comedy scene out here kind of sucks. And yeah, it's yeah. You know, I have other projects that I'm focused on while I'm at home. Okay, thank you. Whoever said congratulations, man. I know you told me your name, but I forgot it. It's like Willow or something like that. It's Wilson or something. Thank you, Mama Debs. Amber says, come to Chicago. I do not have any Chicago on my dates anytime soon. Let's see here. Real Benda says, is your comedy mostly political? I wouldn't say it's mostly. I would say it's probably like 50-50. Thanatos says, why don't you have a name at? I don't know. Are you talking to that dude who said congratulations, man? Jamie says, do you ever debate? So I don't like debates, but I will debate. Like, I'm not going to do it on my live stream because it's like, Willie, thank you, Willie. I forgot. I'm not going to do it on my live stream because I don't think that's productive, so I'm not going to hype it up. But if somebody wants to invite me to debate, like, I will. I just think the debates are stupid, you know, and I relish the opportunity to do a debate so I can try to be a better version of debating. But yeah, you know, if anybody wanted to debate me, I would just be like, you know, I just think they're stupid. You know, Joel Thomas says, what's the best way to troll my right-wing family at Thanksgiving? I mean, I maybe try to be nice and try to, find some common ground and convince them to not be right wing instead. But if you really want to, you know, I guess, uh, yeah, I guess build a wall around the turkey, and when they go over it, be like, oh, I guess walls don't work. Joel Thomas says, "What's the?" All right, I did that one. Kyler says, "What do you think about Trump? Trump is an unbelievable piece of shit. He fucking sucks. He's a terrible president. He's incompetent, corrupt, malicious, vengeful, fascist. Like there are not enough negative words in the dictionary for how terrible he is." Let's see here. Kyler says, "What do you think about ICE? ICE is a rogue agency. They are operating illegally, immorally, unconstitutionally. They're doing atrocities. They are operating with zero oversight because the Republican Party is too scared to stand up to Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. If we were having a full accounting of what ICE was doing, you would be appalled. I am appalled by just the information that is available, and there is worse information that we're not seeing. What we are seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. All right, John Abbott, good to see you again. It's the Rocketeer, good to see you again. It's the Rocketeer Comedy Tour is kicking off next year, and I'm saving a slot for you. All right, yeah, I'll do it. John Abbott says, I bet if you got someone to tell Trump he's too fat to have worn that dress, he'd spend 3 days tweeting about how he not only wore that dress, but he looked better than Monica did. Yeah, John Abbott, that's the bit that I'm working on right now, my guy. Average Joe says, pretend that Mom Donnie convinced you to convert to Islam to troll the right-wing family. That's very funny, Average Joe. Let's see here. Or rename the turkey to mashed potatoes. Yeah. Do a land acknowledgement before the turkey gets carved. It seems like that would really piss off your right-wing family. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach my last gift goal, the Hangry Panda and Counting Blocks. Thank you so much for all of the support, everybody. Kyler says, oh, okay, man, I really like you. I agree with your opinion. I hate all that stuff too. What do you think about Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was also a piece of shit. He should not have gotten murdered. Like it was, you should not be doing political assassinations or extrajudicial killings, no matter how terrible a person is. But I don't think that it is inaccurate to say that he was a toxic element in our culture and in our politics. Tyler Thornton says, what are we, a republic or a democracy? We are a democratic republic. We are a representative democracy. It is both of those things. We don't vote exclusively on who's in charge, but we also don't vote on everything that the government does. So we have both representatives and we have democracy. Jared Otto says, why do you not like Charlie Kirk? So Charlie Kirk, he was a grifter and he was a liar. Like he was not there to get at the truth. He was not there to debate so that the world could come to some sort of political understanding. He was there to win. He was there to propagandize. He was there to trick people into believing that his political philosophy was the correct political philosophy. He did it for money. He did it for power. And he lied. He lied to win debates. He lied. And winning a debate against Charlie Kirk, well, you had to know every fucking stat in the world so that when he made some shit up, you could call him out on it. And it happened from time to time. But obviously, if he's debating a bunch of college kids and he does this professionally and they're just stepping up to the mic, sight unseen, obviously they're not going to be able to catch him and all that stuff. And so he's going to be able to put a bunch of videos out that say like, blue-haired lesbian gets owned by, right-wing God King Charlie Kirk, So yeah, he was a bad person. He was a bad guy. But nobody should murder people just for being bad people. Doyle Rue says, wow, mirroring yourself, host. No, if I ever say anything that's inaccurate, let me know, Doyle. But what I find, very interesting is that people will say that I'm lying. And then when I say, what did I say that was inaccurate? Then they will just call me a cuck or they'll leave. Kyler says, do you believe in God? So I was raised Catholic. I'm agnostic now. I believe that, what Shakespeare said, there are more things between heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. So I don't think that it is as simple as materialism, but I also don't think that it is specifically what any of the religions think. I think it is bigger and weirder and more complicated than that. Fog War Productions says, do you think the right has shown a lot of restraint since the Charlie Kirk assassination? I don't. I am glad for how things have played out since then, because it really seemed like people with a lot of power and influence on the right, like Donald Trump and Alex Jones, Breitbart, Infowars, etc., it really seemed like they were trying to throw fuel on the fire for there to be more political violence based off of what happened to Charlie Kirk. And it doesn't seem like that's happened, you know. I know that there has been violence against the left since Charlie Kirk's assassination, but maybe it hasn't broken through because it wasn't as egregious. Maybe it hasn't broken through because those people weren't famous. Maybe it hasn't broken through because there's a bias against reporting on violence against the left. But for whatever reason, that has made it so that things have not escalated. And I think that is a blessing. You know, I think it's unfair that, you know, violence against the left doesn't really count for some reason. But I'm glad that that is not what people are thinking about right now. People are not thinking about retaliation or escalating a civil war between, you know, the two political parties. Real Finesca says, did Trump drop the files? I don't believe that he has. Mr. Wake Me Up says, are we getting stimulus checks? Yes or no? We might. You know, Donald Trump is trying to buy his way back into, you know, the good graces of the American people. It would be an extremely stupid thing to do. So he might do it. He might not do it. You know, it's shitty motivations on either side. He either lied about it because he wants people to think that he's fighting to give them money, and then we're not going to get the money, or he's going to pressure Congress to fucking, you know, increase the deficit exponentially so that he can try to bribe people into liking him again. It's so fucking stupid. Kyler says, what do you think about his wife and JD Vance, Charlie Kirk's wife? I mean, it's kind of like, it's Real Housewives shit, you know, like it's fun to gossip about, but I don't have any evidence that the two of them are having an affair or anything. It's funny to you know, suggest that that's the case, but I don't know. I don't have any evidence that that's actually happening. And you know, I think that there are real substantive things to dislike about JD Vance and Charlie Kirk's wife. I don't think we need to add a potentially fictional affair on top of that. Jamie says JD Kirk is changing his name. That's pretty funny. Oy. Harry Dingleberry says, because everybody's sick of the Democratic and Republican Party, do we need a third? I'm not sick of the Democratic Party. I get very frustrated with some people in the Democratic Party, specifically leadership of the Democratic Party, but I think the Democratic Party is great. I still think it's great. I think that it's great because there are people in the party who I disagree with and who I find very frustrating. You know, I very much dislike people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, but I very much miss their votes in the Senate. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I think Arizona, we replaced her with a better Democrat, right? Like they didn't get a Republican after that. But yeah, you know, and a third party, you know, I think people underestimate how much time, energy, and money it takes to build a third party that is competitive on the national stage and also is not going to be a spoiler candidate for the party that you would have picked if it was not for that third party. Let's see here. Joel Thomas says, barely enough gets done with two parties. I can't imagine adding a third option/opinion. Yeah, my joke about this is America chooses wrong over half the time when there are only two options. So I think a third would be worrisome. Mr. Wake Me Up says, vote Jill Stein. No, do not vote Jill Stein. Jill Stein is a grifter. Jill Stein, there is evidence to suggest that she is an agent of the Russian government. Do not vote for Jill Stein. She's 100% full of shit. All right. Willie says Harry's comment is misleading. Both parties have always had internal division. Yes, Harry. Yes, Willie. But it is accurate to say that there is a little bit less of coalescing in the Democratic Party because it is so much more of a big tent and less of a monolith. And yes, there are disagreements in the Republican Party, but because it is mainly the party of straight white Christians, it is a lot easier for them to rally around, you know, around their president or their one message or anything. Kyler says, what do you think about illegal immigrants? Immigrants are a net positive on America, especially since we are having, we are in a period of decreasing population. And so we're going to need people in this country to do jobs and fund Social Security and stuff like that. They put more money into social safety net programs than they take out of them. because they pay taxes, but they're not eligible for all services. Obviously, if you live in a border town and you are, you know, terrified because there are roving bands of migrants, you know, sneaking through your backyard every night, obviously that's an issue that needs to be addressed. But the Republican Party, as in my opinion, lost all credibility in regards to the immigration debate because number one, what they are doing to try to solve the problem is fucking barbaric. Like it's disgusting, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it's just like morally unconscionable, you know? And so like if that's the way that you think you're gonna solve the problem, like I'd fucking rather have the problem than solve it that way, you know? Hey man, I really want to lose 20 pounds. All right, well, we cut off your legs. That seems like a pretty good idea. So yeah, that's number one. And number two is during the Biden administration, the Republican Party worked with the Democratic Party on policy to try to address the border crisis. And the Republican Party wrote the bill with the Democrats. It was a compromise bill. It had some stuff for them, mostly stuff for them, and some stuff for the Democratic Party. And they were right about to vote on it. And then Donald Trump said, don't vote on that. I want to be able to run on this in 2024. I want this to stay an issue for political power. And to me, that means you have zero credibility. If you insist on keeping a problem just so that people vote for you, you have no credibility, in my opinion. Kyler says, what you think about abort babies? I'm pro-choice, but even people that are pro-life should vote for Democrats because Democrats actually have the policies that stop abortions from happening. Republican policies don't stop abortion. They don't even decrease abortions. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Okay, Mig says, how do they pay taxes if they're undocumented? Sales tax is one example, MIGs. Mr. Wake Me Up says, let's scoop them up from India. They got about $1 billion. I mean, if people from India want to come over here, then that's fine. Fogwar Productions, how would you solve the birth rate problem? That is a really good question, Fogwar Productions. And I did listen to a whole ass podcast about this, and it is a lot more complicated, actually, than just making it so that people can afford to have kids. Like, some people believe that the baby boom happened because of all the economic prosperity that happened in the 1950s in America, and that we are suffering from population decline right now because of the cost of living crisis that's going on in America. But if you dig into the data a little bit more, it's actually a lot more complicated, and where sometimes people choose not to have kids because they have a lot of money in the bank and because they're like, I want to go travel and do fun things with this money and not be, you know, and not be saddled down with a family right now. But I do think that there are policies that we could implement that would make it easier for people who want to have a family, and we should do that 100%. But at the same time, we should be making contraceptives available, cheap, free, potentially, sex education, family planning. I think that we need to do both. I think we need to encourage people to only have children when they want them. And I think that we should make it easy for people to have children when they want them. So yeah, that's how I would solve that. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. We'll see. I also think that we need to kind of restructure the economy, not based on growth, but based on sustainability, because the earth is finite and we cannot support just an unlimited number of people, you know, so Coca-Cola is going to have to fucking deal with, all right, you have this many customers and that's fucking it, instead of being like, we need more, we need more, we need more. Green Eyes says, why are the Republicans so worried about the birth rate, but also want to deport people? Well, I mean, depends on which Republicans you're talking about, but some Republicans believe that not only do we need to go back to America being a more predominantly white country, we also need women to go back to a more subjugated position in our culture. And so in trying to get the birth rate up, they are trying to make it so that women are more, they're being trad wives again, basically. And that's, you know, part of the trad wife propaganda that's been spreading around social media recently. Alrighty. John Abbott says, have you seen the recent reports that ICE is now outsourcing to groups that are basically just acting as mercenary headhunters? I have not heard about that, but I mean, it makes sense, unfortunately. John Abbott says, I've always disliked the term extrajudicial killing. A murder being state sanctioned shouldn't magically make it less bad than one that wasn't state sanctioned. I generally agree with that. John Abbott, yeah, you know, yeah, I get it. But I do think there's a difference between somebody who goes to trial, is found guilty, And then because of a judge or a jury of their peers, people decide this person gets the death penalty, as opposed to, for example, blowing up boats in international waters off the coast of Venezuela to try to start a war with Maduro. Maduro is Venezuela, right? So yeah, that is an extrajudicial murder as well. And I'm against the death penalty, but the death penalty, at least there's due process there. Williams says, "Are you a Zionist?" It depends on how you define Zionist. I believe that the people that are living in Israel deserve to be able to stay there and not have to worry about violence from their neighboring countries. But I also think that the way that Israel has treated their neighboring countries is fucking disgusting. And specifically to Palestine, who organizations within Israel have described as a genocide. So yeah, I support the citizens of every country, both Palestine and Israel. Okay, Willie says, "Do you support a two-state solution?" I mean, I do, but if you listen to people who are experts on that region, they will tell you that Israel has done enough where a two-state solution is basically unviable at this point. And so politicians who are trying to use the shorthand of two-state solution to kind of like avoid the issue are going to have to start advocating for something else, because yeah, I believe that there have been so many illegal West Bank settlements that a two-state solution would be very difficult to implement at this point. Green Eye says, "Will Bibi ever step down?" Not by choice, but potentially by vote. Kyler says, "Do you have any kids?" My wife and I are expecting our first. Yankfish says, "Palestine is not a country." Sure, many other countries recognize Palestine as a country. Shani Fletchup says, "So why did the Saudi prince smirk when asked about 9/11?" I have no idea. I don't know anything about that. Okay, Blake says, "Do you think they're scripting the files?" I think that Kash Patel is, yes, 100%. Whether or not there are other copies somewhere is an open question. Mohammed says, "Some young women don't want the government dictating their family planning decisions." I think that is a totally valid position to have. Thank you, Kyler. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. I went extra long today because I started getting really good questions at the very end. But yeah, regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. I have a store that you can buy things from. Links are in the bio. And you can send gifts and become super fans and super subscribers on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and all the various platforms. Shout out to my patrons, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. And shout out to my super fans on TikTok, Susie, Sean, Dan, and Hot Sauce. If you have Amazon Prime and you want to help me out, you can be a free subscriber on Twitch. You pay $0, I get $2, and that is very helpful for me. Let's see here. The Discord is my favorite resource right now, because in addition to being a great place to get in touch and form community with other fans of the show, there's also recommendations there for books and podcasts and volunteer opportunities if you want to be part of the help, if you want to be part of the work to try to help this country. And if you have any questions that I was not able to get to, or when I'm not live streaming, feel free to reach out. Don't be shy. I am totally open to it. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can get in touch with me in my Discord. I want to be a resource for you to be more involved and to be more informed. And if I can help you do that, then I want you to do that. Use me and abuse me. Use me until I am all used up. And lastly, I just hope that you guys will all do the work, because it is only through us doing the work that we're going to be able to get out of this. So yeah, do your volunteering, make your phone calls, recruit, talk to people in real life. That's how we get out of this. Take everything you see on the internet with a grain of salt, and be part of the solution in real life, everybody. You're a good guy, Kyler. Stoogie says, "Tallarico 28. I think you should try to win the Senate seat first." I feel the same way about AOC. I'm like, grab that Senate seat, and maybe we can get somebody who is similarly great, like a Chris Murphy or a Bashir or a Shapiro, to run for president instead. Curious One says, "I love the Bill Withers quote." Thank you. I love Bill Withers too. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.